Are you in an abusive relationship? You've been thinking about leaving but can't. You feel trapped, stuck. I bet you've been told you should just leave. That hurt, didn't it? It made you feel small, stupid. Or maybe you're the friend or the loved one who has someone you care about in a bad relationship, and you've thought or even said this. I'm going to share why this is the worst possible advice and what we should say instead. Hi, I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy, a mental health specialist with over 20 years of counseling experience, and I'm also a narcissistic abuse survivor. Here on this channel is where we talk about all things related to narcissism, personality disorders, and healthy relationships. If you haven't subscribed, be sure to do that right now so that you don't miss any upcoming videos on how to learn to recognize toxic relationships and how to protect yourself better from narcissistic abuse. So, why is telling someone just leave a bad idea? Well, it not only minimizes the dangerousness of the situation, but it demonstrates a lack of understanding of the victim's experience. In this, I'm going to cover three main areas. One, why it isn't helpful. Two, why it's the most commonly offered piece of advice. And three, what we should say instead. So first, why isn't it helpful? Most of the time, victims have already tried many different avenues of leaving. In fact, it's estimated they try up to 7 times. They've been living with a destructive person who is deliberately antagonistic, and there probably is real danger psychologically and maybe even physically. For months to years, they've been living in fear while they contemplated their options, while the normal access to resources have been cut off and are no longer available. Often, they don't have access to money or a way to make a living or even the financial autonomy to make decisions like you and I do. They may have been reduced to having to ask for an allowance like a teenager, and their expenditures are monitored and challenged. They've been cut off from outside help, and their closest relationships and friendships have probably been undermined and deterred. And over time, they've lost contact with what once was strong connections with people who could actually offer help. They probably have exhausted other options, and by that time, they've now come to talk to you. Most people who seek help have already considered all the reasonable possibilities and have come to some roadblock. Leaving was probably the first thing they've considered. So while they're sharing this with you, they're acting like a trauma victim who's looking for validation. They want to know that they are undergoing something that's outside the realm of normal. They have been experiencing intense gaslighting and are no longer for sure what's real. They want to know from you if it seems as bad to you as it does to them. Are they correct in the assumption that they need help? And so they're turning to you as a source of accuracy and support. When you're in an abusive relationship like that, it's ongoing trauma, resulting in a perpetual state of shock and disbelief. Talking about it helps you become to see that it's real while you get in touch with your feelings. You end up experiencing the truth of the situation as you get outside input. Telling someone to just leave misses all of these nuances. And then, of course, there's how we deliver that advice. We usually say it with irritation or disgust. It's usually laced with lots of judgment, like, "You dumbass, just leave." But that advice often isn't possible, and it fails to give support while it heaps on more abuse with its contemptuous tone. So that brings me to number 2. Why then, if it's such bad advice, do so many of us offer it? Well, I think there are several reasons why we do this. First, I think it's just because we don't know what else to say. So we often think that it's just simple advice, that it's best advice. We feel helpless. There's a door. Why aren't they leaving? We don't really understand. We just want the situation to be solved. So we say the obvious. Second, I think we oversimplify the situation. Most of us haven't experienced life with a dangerous person. We don't really know how this individual's been walking on eggshells, that their life has been a living hell. So we're coming at it from our standpoint, and it seems like just a simple matter. You ask for help and there's a solution. We don't realize that we may be putting them in harm's way. Third, victims' plights tend to stir up a deep sense of dread within us. No one likes to feel helpless. It's one of our worst fears. So we unconsciously distance ourselves by telling ourselves that we're not like that victim, that what's happening to them could never happen to us, because we have the brains and determination and strength, all the skills that we somehow think that they don't have. And we tell ourselves that we would do better if this was us, and that we'd never get trapped. And this is a way for us to handle our powerlessness. But here's the thing. It's not actually true. You and I are equally at risk of being abused. There's nothing unique about victims that prevented it from being them and not us. In fact, though we rarely acknowledge that terrifies us. So that brings me to my third point. What should we do the next time we encounter somebody who comes to us with a terrible relationship and needs help? First, just listen. They aren't necessarily looking for answers, but just want to feel less alone and for you to see them. So really listen. Ask follow-up questions. Possibly make physical contact, like putting your hand on their shoulder or arm. Secondly, ask them what you can do to help. Just straight up and ask them. Let them know that you want to come through for them and you want to know what would be best to do that. You can say something like, you probably thought of leaving, but I'm sure there are things that are getting in the way of that. So what is it that I could do to help you so that that's more possible? By doing this, you're inviting a conversation to talk about the obstacles they're facing. And thirdly, accept that not everyone's timeline of taking action is going to be the same as yours. They're not going to do it the way that you would do it. So be open and accepting of this difference. Just by doing that, it creates an air of acceptance, and we give people the space to move at their own pace. Finally, stay connected. So when they're ready to get the help, you're there. By keeping the lines of communication open, there'll come a day when they come to you and ask for your actual help in doing the leaving. But you have to be there for that to happen. I would love to know what you think of this. Have you tried it? How well did it work? And if you're the one being told to just leave, what was it like for you to experience that piece of advice? And if you like this video, please be sure to like it and subscribe to this channel so you can get more advice like this in the future.